At exactly 4:03 in the morning, the lights on the 23rd floor of the towering Orion Technologies headquarters were supposed to be off. The building was almost silent except for the faint humming of servers and the soft glow of computer monitors left in sleep mode. But when CEO Vivian Cross stepped out of the elevator after returning from an emergency investor meeting, she noticed a light still shining from the engineering department. She expected to find another exhausted software engineer chasing deadlines. Instead, she found a maintenance worker asleep at a desk, surrounded by empty coffee cups, pages filled with handwritten code, and a computer screen displaying one word in bright green letters: success. The impossible software bug that had frustrated her best engineers for 7 exhausting days had finally been solved by them, and everyone in the building barely noticed. Before we continue this unforgettable story, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who still believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to spread love daily. Every small act of support helps us continue sharing stories that remind the world compassion still exists. Morning sunlight slowly painted the city skyline as employees began arriving, unaware that history had already been written hours before they walked through the revolving doors. Vivian stood silently beside the sleeping man, noticing the dark circles beneath his eyes and the worn fabric of his maintenance uniform. His name tag read Mason Hale. She had probably passed him hundreds of times without ever learning his story. On the desk sat an old family photograph. Mason was smiling beside a little girl with curly hair who couldn't have been older than 7. Her missing front tooth made her grin even brighter. The frame was cracked, but it was polished carefully, as though it was the most valuable thing he owned. Vivian gently looked at the computer logs. The timestamp shocked her. Mason had started reviewing the code shortly after midnight. Somehow, by combining several overlooked functions and rewriting one critical algorithm, he had eliminated the memory leak that had brought Orion's newest software platform to a standstill. The solution wasn't complicated. It was elegant. Before waking him, she quietly called the head of engineering. Within minutes, half the engineering leadership gathered around the monitor in disbelief. They spent nearly an hour reviewing every line Mason had written. There were no shortcuts, no lucky guesses, no copied solutions from the internet. Every improvement demonstrated deep understanding, patience, and extraordinary skill. No one could explain why the building's maintenance worker possessed the talent of a senior software architect. As Mason slowly opened his eyes, panic immediately spread across his face. He jumped from the chair, apologizing repeatedly, convinced he was about to lose the only job keeping food on his daughter's table. His voice trembled as he explained that he had finished cleaning the offices hours earlier. While emptying trash bins, he had noticed the engineers discussing the problem before leaving for the night. Curiosity led him to examine the code after everyone went home. One small observation became another until sunrise arrived without him realizing how much time had passed. Vivian listened quietly instead of interrupting. Then she asked him a question that changed everything. Why did someone with skills like his work as a janitor? The answer filled the room with silence. Years earlier, Mason had been one of the brightest software developers in his city. He loved solving impossible problems and building programs that helped people. But life changed overnight when his wife passed away unexpectedly after a sudden illness, leaving him alone to raise their newborn daughter, Aubrey. The endless hospital bills drained every dollar they had saved. Flexible work became impossible as Mason struggled between daycare schedules, medical appointments, and caring for his grieving little girl. Eventually, missed deadlines cost him his position. Interview after interview ended with polite rejection once employers discovered he needed unusual hours to care for his daughter. Months became years. The expensive suits disappeared, replaced by work boots and a maintenance uniform. Cleaning offices during the night allowed him to spend every afternoon helping Aubrey with homework before putting her to bed. He never stopped loving programming. Every evening after finishing his cleaning duties, he secretly studied new programming languages using free online courses. Whenever abandoned whiteboards contained technical discussions, he photographed them and solved the problems at home for practice. Nobody knew. Programming wasn't simply a career. It was the last dream connecting him to the person he used to be. Vivian felt something inside her change. She remembered her own father working double shifts while teaching himself accounting from borrowed library books. She remembered watching him fall asleep over textbooks because he believed education could transform an entire family. Standing before Mason, she saw the same quiet determination. That afternoon, instead of returning to cleaning duties, Mason was invited into the executive conference room. Engineers who once ignored him now carefully asked him to explain how he found the hidden flaw. As he calmly walked through each step, their skepticism slowly transformed into admiration. He didn't criticize anyone. Instead, he praised the team's original design and simply explained that sometimes fresh eyes notice patterns others overlook after staring at the same problem for too long. Humility impressed everyone even more than brilliance. Vivian made a decision before the meeting ended. She offered Mason a full-time position as a senior software engineer. The salary was nearly 4 times what he earned as a maintenance worker. Flexible hours allowed him to remain the father Aubrey needed. Health insurance covered both of them immediately. For several seconds, Mason couldn't speak. His eyes filled with tears as years of exhaustion, disappointment, and silent sacrifice finally found release. He had spent so long expecting doors to close that he no longer knew how to walk through one opening before him. News spread across Orion Technologies faster than anyone expected. Employees who had barely noticed the quiet janitor suddenly learned the remarkable story hidden behind his humble smile. Some apologized for overlooking him. Others began greeting every cleaner, security guard, and cafeteria worker by name. The culture inside the company slowly changed. Vivian introduced a program encouraging every employee, regardless of position, to submit ideas for innovation. Hidden talent, she reminded everyone, rarely arrives wearing an executive title. 6 months later, Mason led one of Orion's most successful development teams. The same engineers who once unknowingly left complicated problems on whiteboards now eagerly collaborated with him. His leadership style reflected everything hardship had taught him. He never embarrassed junior developers for asking questions. He stayed late helping struggling teammates. He celebrated every small success because he remembered what failure felt like. Meanwhile, Aubrey noticed something different too. Her father laughed again. They moved from their tiny apartment into a modest home with a small backyard where she planted flowers beside a wooden swing. For the first time since losing her mother, the future felt brighter than the past. One Saturday, Orion Technologies hosted Family Day. Children visited the offices where their parents worked. Aubrey proudly walked beside Mason, wearing a tiny visitor badge almost as large as her smile. She stopped outside the very office where her father's life had changed forever. Looking up at him, she squeezed his hand. She didn't fully understand software engineering or computer bugs. But she understood hope. She knew her father no longer came home defeated. She knew he smiled more. She knew dreams, even forgotten ones, could somehow find their way back. Vivian watched from across the hallway. The company's greatest achievement had never been the software launch or investor success. It had been recognizing the extraordinary value hidden inside someone the world had stopped noticing. Sometimes the greatest talent isn't missing. It's simply waiting for someone to look beyond the uniform. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with friends and family, and subscribe to Spread Love Daily. Your support helps us continue bringing inspiring stories that remind us every person deserves to be seen. Glowing Star special request, comment below with the words, "Kindness changes lives," if you believe everyone deserves one more chance. As the sun set over the city that evening, the office lights reflected against the windows just as they had on that unforgettable morning. But this time, they no longer illuminated a forgotten maintenance worker struggling alone in silence. They shined on a father whose perseverance had finally been recognized, a daughter whose future had been rewritten, and a company that learned its greatest breakthrough wasn't just fixing a week-old software bug. It was discovering that extraordinary people often stand quietly in ordinary places, waiting for someone to believe in them. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all is that kindness has the power to uncover miracles where the world only sees routine. Sometimes, all it takes is one person willing to notice what everyone else overlooked, and an entire life can change forever.